My name is Kinsley, and I didn't wake up planning to start a war with my family. All I wanted was a quiet morning, coffee hot enough to burn my lip, a to-do list that didn't feel like a trap, and a little silence that didn't ask anything of me. But silence in my family is a currency. No one lets you keep it for long. It started with a text. Send $1 or $200 for graduation. No greeting, no hey Kins, no punctuation, just a demand. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. The sender was Logan, my sister's 17-year-old son, who had long since learned to treat me like the family's emergency fund. A heartbeat later, a second message arrived. Mom says you have plenty. And there it was. The echo of my sister Mara's voice coming out of Logan's thumbs. I read it twice because the second sentence hit harder than the first. It wasn't the number. It was the assumption. I could afford it. That wasn't the point. The point was how automatic it had become for everyone to reach into my pockets before they even said hello. Last year, I quietly paid Logan's first-year college tuition, $14,500. A one-time favor, they said. The entire family lined up behind that request like a choir hitting the same note. You can help. Why wouldn't you? I helped. I always helped, but this time something in me went very still. I typed back 2 words. Work for it. No explanation, no apology. I hit send and set the phone down like a pot that had finally stopped boiling. For the first time in years, I felt the heat leaving my hands instead of filling them. 5 minutes later, Mara texted me herself. No hello, no context, just, pay or you're cut off. Cut off from what? Her silent treatments? Her sharp little punishments? I stared at the message and felt something click into place. Not a crack of rage, something cleaner. Clarity. Mara's leverage had always been noise. I just didn't have to listen anymore. That night, while the rest of the city hummed outside, I logged into my bank account and cancelled the auto payments I'd been covering for Mara's mortgage. 6 months of payments I never questioned. She'd told me Drew, her husband, was recovering from surgery, that they just needed a little help. I never saw a hospital bill. I never asked. I just paid. Tick. Pay. Tick. Forgive. Tick. Pretend I wasn't exhausted. At 8:15 the next morning, my phone lit up like a siren. 4 missed calls from Mara, 1 from Mom, 2 from Drew. Then the texts came. Logan called me selfish. Mara accused me of abandoning family. Drew, always polite, always too careful, asked if there'd been some kind of mistake. I didn't respond. I flipped the phone face down and took another sip of my coffee. The steam curled through the kitchen like a ribbon untying itself. By lunchtime, Mara fired her first public shot. A Facebook post written in vague, venom-laced poetry. Funny how the people who have the most to give are the first to withhold. Betrayal always comes from those closest. Lesson learned. Dozens of likes, heart emojis. A single comment from someone I didn't know. Protect your peace. I almost laughed. My cousin Becca texted me the screenshot with a popcorn emoji. Guess someone didn't get their grad money. I didn't reply. I had learned that responding to a fire doesn't always put it out. Sometimes it just teaches the flames your name. By afternoon, the group text came. The entire family. Mara was center stage. It's heartbreaking how easily some people throw you away when they're done using you. I hope none of you ever get abandoned like I have. I waited. Watched the typing bubbles. And then, nothing. Not one reply. Not from the aunts. Not from the cousins. Just silence. A long, instructive silence. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still, like a lake after a storm, where the wreckage finally floats to the surface. That night, my boyfriend Jamie texted me from work. Rough day? I sent back a photo of my untouched dinner. He replied, Pasta therapy tonight? I almost said no. But then I realized for once I didn't owe anyone my exhaustion. So I said yes. Near dusk, Mom called. She didn't ask how I was. She sighed into the receiver like someone carefully positioning herself on the fence. Mara's upset. She says you humiliated her in front of Logan. This has caused a huge rift between her and Drew. What humiliation? I asked. I told her son to earn his own prom money. Mom's voice softened into its usual plea. I just wish you two would stop fighting. This isn't a fight, Mom. A fight happens between equals. This is me drawing a line and Mara throwing herself against it. Silence. Then, something I hadn't expected. You've done enough, Kinsley. It was quiet. A tiny seam of light in armor that had always been impenetrable where Mara was concerned. I didn't press it. Some realizations bloom better when you don't breathe on them. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen and just listened to the refrigerator hum, to my own breath. I thought about how many times I'd rewritten the past so the present would cost me less. How often I'd called exploitation family. Here's what no one knew. Not Jamie, not Mom, not even Becca. A month ago, Mara had called me and raged for 40 minutes. I'd recorded it. Not to use it, but to remind myself later I hadn't imagined it. She'd spat venom at everyone. Drew, Mom, the cousins, even Logan. Said I was her insurance policy, her easy fix. And in that moment, listening to her voice again, I realized something simple and brutal. I had always been her plan B. Not anymore. The night stretched quiet and long. My phone buzzed once more. Another text from Mara. You think this is over? You made yourself the enemy of the family. I stared at it for a long time, then set the phone down, face up this time, like it no longer had the power to burn. This time my silence wasn't surrender. It was the start of a war I didn't owe anyone. The storm didn't wait for me to invite it in. By the next morning, my phone was a battlefield. 12 missed calls. Mara, Logan, Mom, even Drew. Each name stacked like soldiers waiting to be heard. The family group chat was flickering with passive-aggressive smoke signals, half quotes, vague posts, and the kind of dramatic punctuation that made everything look urgent even when it wasn't. Mara had always been good at making herself the victim. It was her favorite role. But this time, I wasn't in the audience. I was off stage, silent, watching her performance unravel. Around noon, Drew called again. I let it ring until voicemail. He was kind, or at least better at pretending than Mara. But kindness doesn't erase the weight of being someone else's silent backup plan. Minutes later, a text followed. Can we talk? This feels like a misunderstanding. I stared at it and didn't reply. Because there was no misunderstanding. There was only expectation. Mine to give, theirs to take. By evening, Mom showed up at my door uninvited. She never did that. She hovered in my doorway holding a grocery bag, the universal peace offering. You look tired, she said softly. It was a sentence she'd used my entire life, and somehow it always landed like a scalpel. I'm fine, I lied. She walked in anyway. We sat at the kitchen table, the kind of silence between us that wasn't awkward but sharp. She's unraveling, Mom said finally. She called me crying, saying you humiliated her, that you turned Logan against her. I almost laughed. I told her to tell him to get a job. That's not humiliation. She feels abandoned, Mom added, like that word was a knife she was handing to me. I've been abandoned my whole damn life by her noise, I whispered. Her eyes flicked up, surprised by the edge in my voice. But I didn't back down. Mom, I've spent years paying for her chaos because I was too scared of being the villain. I'm done. The grocery bag rustled in her lap. She looked older suddenly, as if the years of choosing sides had finally caught up to her. She's still your sister. And I'm still a person, I shot back softer this time. That night, Mara escalated. Not with a call, not with a text, with a Facebook Live. I didn't watch it, but Becca did, and within 3 minutes she sent me a summary like a news anchor covering a scandal. She's crying. She's saying you abandoned her, ruined her family, left her son stranded. It's a whole sob story. No names, but everyone knows it's about you. I stared at the ceiling. This was classic Mara. If she couldn't guilt me in private, she'd crucify me in public. Jamie came over around 9. He had 2 things with him, takeout and a face that already said, I saw the post. He didn't ask questions immediately. He waited until my plate was half empty. So, the circus is back in town, he said. I snorted. She's live streaming the apocalypse, apparently. He leaned against the counter, watching me closely. Are you okay? I hated that question. I never knew how to answer it. I'm steady, I finally said. Steady is good, he murmured. Steady is rare with her. When he left, I sat alone with the dim kitchen light bleeding across the floor. My phone buzzed again. A message from Logan this time. You're ruining everything. I didn't reply. Then Mara's name lit up my screen. Answer me. We need to fix this. She didn't want to fix anything. She wanted control. I turned the phone face down and let it buzz against the table like a trapped fly. The next day, it wasn't just noise. It was strategy. Mara's little alliances started moving. Aunt Linda texted something wrapped in guilt. Family is forever, Kinsley. Don't let pride win. Cousin Danny liked Mara's vague posts and sent me nothing at all. Drew tried again. You're hurting more people than you think. And through it all, my silence grew thicker. By Friday, the family group chat split in 2. Those who stayed quiet, and those who wanted me to fold. I didn't. For the first time in my life, I held the line. The house felt lighter, even as the noise outside grew louder. Becca called that night, her voice sharp with something almost like glee. Mara's losing it. She just posted a selfie with some quote about snakes and loyalty. I groaned into the phone. Classic. Yeah, but no one's biting, she added. Not a single comment, not even Aunt Linda. It's like everyone's tired. And maybe that's what terrified Mara the most. An audience growing quiet. Saturday morning, I woke to a voicemail from Drew. His voice was steady, polite, like someone trying to hold something heavy without letting it drop. I saw the mortgage payment stopped. Is everything okay? I played it twice. Not because I doubted what I'd done, but because for the first time I felt the weight shifting. For years, I'd been the safety net under Mara's performance. Now she was looking down and realizing it was gone. That night, she called me 10 times in a row. I didn't answer. Then the texts came. How could you do this? You're ruining my life. You don't understand. Pick up the phone. I stared at the words until they blurred into static. Jamie texted around midnight. Still holding the line? I typed back, yeah. And it's quieter here. When I finally went to bed, the silence in my apartment didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. The kind of silence you build brick by brick, after years of letting other people fill your space with their noise. Mara didn't know it yet, but the war she thought she'd declared had already started losing momentum. Some storms don't need your voice. They collapse when you stop feeding them. Mara had always been the family's chosen melody, the one everyone tuned themselves to whether or not the song made sense. She didn't need to shout to be heard. She just had to cry, and the world rearranged itself. For years, I'd watched her sway people with a practiced quiver in her voice and a perfectly timed tear. But now, for the first time, the song wasn't working. The silence on the other end of her performances was louder than any applause she'd ever received. By Monday morning, she'd turned her grief into a full production. Vague quotes, shaky videos, soft lighting meant to catch every glimmer of her tears. It would have worked once. But now the family thread stayed mostly still. A few heart emojis here and there. Nothing like the rallying chorus she'd grown used to. I scrolled through her feed without flinching. She looked desperate. There's a kind of beauty to desperation when it hits someone who's always been untouchable. It strips away the polish, leaves only the person beneath. And Mara beneath was brittle. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when Mom called. I almost didn't pick up, but some habits die slower than others. "She's asking for you," she said without preamble. Her voice was soft but strained, like she was trying to keep the peace between invisible walls. "She's not getting me," I replied. "She's scared," Mom whispered. "She's always scared," I corrected. "That's how she gets what she wants." A long silence followed. Mom wasn't used to me holding my ground. "Kinsley," she said finally, "she's still your sister." "And I'm still allowed to not be her safety net," I answered. Her sigh was heavy but quieter this time, like she was realizing her usual tools weren't working on me anymore. That evening, Drew texted again. Short, careful. "Things are bad here." It wasn't a plea, not yet, but it was close. I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I'd spent years caring for everyone but myself. Around 8, Jamie dropped by unannounced. He didn't ask permission. He just walked in holding 2 takeout bags and a look that said, "You need this." He wasn't wrong. "She's cracking," he said between bites. "Becca sent me screenshots. It's getting messy." "Messy how?" "She's arguing with people in her own comments section, like full-on rants." I raised an eyebrow. "That's new." Mara never ranted in public. She was too careful, too polished. For her to lose her grip like that meant the ground beneath her was finally shifting. Later that night, Logan texted me for the first time since the fallout. His message was a single line. "It's not fair what you're doing to her." I stared at it longer than I should have. Logan had always been wrapped in Mara's narrative. He saw the world through the script she fed him. And yet, beneath the words, I could hear it. A small edge of confusion. Like someone starting to see behind the curtain but not ready to admit it. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, let the night hold its silence. Tuesday arrived with a new wave. Aunt Linda called this time. She'd always been one of Mara's quiet cheerleaders, the type to say, "I'm not picking sides," while standing firmly on hers. "This is getting out of hand," she said, trying to sound neutral. "Then maybe she should stop spinning lies," I said. "She's just hurt," Linda added. "No," I corrected softly. "She's exposed." In the background of the call, I heard something I hadn't before. Hesitation. Even Linda wasn't sure anymore. Mara's power had always been built on people not questioning her version of the story. But the moment doubt seeped in, cracks began to show. That night, Becca texted me a link to a private post Mara had made in a small family-only group. It was a long, meandering rant about betrayal, family, and how I'd ruined everything she worked for. I read every line slowly. There was no strategy in it, just panic. It was the sound of someone watching their throne crumble. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. The silence of the others in that group was doing it for me. By Wednesday, Logan called. Not texted, called. I didn't pick up at first. Then I did, because curiosity is a stubborn thing. His voice was tight, uncertain. "She's not okay," he said. "She's screaming at everyone. She keeps saying you turned everyone against her." I leaned back against the counter, letting his words wash over me like water I'd already swum through. "I didn't turn anyone. I just stopped holding her up." "She's my mom," he said, and I heard the crack in his voice. It wasn't anger. It was the beginning of something else. Realization. "I know," I said quietly, "and none of this is your fault." He didn't reply right away. Then he whispered, "She said you're the reason Dad left." I almost laughed, not out of humor, but because it was so predictable. "No, Logan," I said steadily. "Your dad left because he got tired of living in a story where she's the hero and everyone else is a prop." The silence that followed was different this time. Not a wall, a door. Thursday morning, Mara showed up at my apartment. No warning, no text, just the sound of her knuckles against my door, fast, uneven. When I opened it, she looked wrong. Her hair was pulled back like she hadn't cared. Her face stripped of its practiced glow, eyes puffy from nights spent losing control. "We need to talk," she said. Not begged, demanded. "No," I said calmly. "We don't." She blinked, like she couldn't comprehend a version of me that didn't fold. "You can't just cut me out," she hissed. "I can," I replied. And I did. Her breath hitched, and for the first time I saw it, the panic behind her fury, the realization that I wasn't bluffing. "I can't do this without you," she whispered. "You were never supposed to." I didn't invite her in. I didn't soothe her. I let the silence between us do what words never could. After a moment, she stepped back, her voice brittle. "You'll regret this." I watched her walk away without flinching. That night, Jamie called. "She came to see you, didn't she?" "Yeah," I said. "And?" "She's not winning this time." He was quiet for a second, then said softly, "Even golden children can rust when the spotlight turns cold." The first thing I noticed that Friday morning wasn't the silence, but the absence of noise pretending to be love. No buzzing phone, no notifications dripping with guilt disguised as family concern. Just air, cool and steady, like a room finally cleared of smoke. I made coffee the way I always do. Slow, deliberate, with that quiet satisfaction that comes when no one is demanding a piece of you before sunrise. I thought about how many mornings had started with her voice. A favor, a crisis, a bill, a performance. And how I'd treated every one of those moments like it was a duty carved into my bones. But this morning belonged to me. Jamie called around noon. "She's quiet," he said, his voice low. "Too quiet." I almost smiled. That's how it starts. "Or ends," he replied. He wasn't wrong. Mara was never built for silence. She thrived in chaos, swam in pity, mastered control through noise. Without an audience, she was just another woman with the weight of her own decisions pressing down. And from the sound of it, that weight was finally settling. By the afternoon, word started drifting through the family channels in fragments. Logan had moved out. Drew had filed paperwork. Aunt Linda had gone radio silent after realizing her favorite narrative no longer made sense. The house that Mara had built out of carefully curated illusions was starting to tilt. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to hold it up. I didn't rush anywhere. I just existed. Mom called that evening. Her voice was softer than I remembered, like someone standing on the other side of a war they'd spent years defending. "It's happening, isn't it?" she whispered. I didn't ask what she meant. We both knew. "Yes," I said. "It's happening. She's falling apart." No accusation, just quiet resignation. "She's finally living in the world she built," I said. "And I'm not pulling her out of it this time." She didn't argue. She just sighed, like someone setting down a weight that was never theirs to carry forever. That night, on the balcony, the city lights looked different. Not brighter or darker, just honest. Years of Mara's chaos had filled every corner of my life. Without it, I could finally hear my own breath. Saturday, Logan knocked on my door with a small bag, shoulders tense. "I can't stay there anymore," he said. "You don't have to," I replied. He sat at my table, hands clenched. "She blames you for everything." "I know." "But I don't." His voice cracked. He wasn't her shield anymore. I squeezed his hand gently. "You don't owe her your life just because she gave you one." By Sunday, the fallout was public. Drew served her papers. Someone sent the screenshot. I saw this coming. No tears, no stage. And without a stage, even the best performers forget their lines. That night, Mom came over for dinner. She moved through my space like it belonged to a version of me she hadn't met yet. "You look different," she said. "Free." "I feel free," I answered. We ate in silence, the good kind. When she left, her hug lingered. Monday arrived quietly. No calls, no guilt, no cryptic posts. Jamie said she'd packed and left. A storm without an audience eventually runs out of thunder. Weeks passed. Logan adjusted. Drew moved forward. The pull she'd wrapped around all of us began to dissolve. One evening, Logan handed me a note in Mara's looping handwriting. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day you understand. No apology, just the first honest thing she'd ever left behind. I tucked it away, not as a wound, but as proof of distance. Jamie and I drove out of the city that night. Windows down, no weight, just air. What now? He asked. Now, I said. I live. The sky bled gold into violet. No performance, no guilt. Just me. My name is Kinsley, I whispered. And I'm done carrying stories that don't belong to me. Sometimes freedom isn't loud. It's the sound of a door closing behind you,